I remember the great elation that I had, how wonderful I felt the country was and the Constitution after the 1954 ruling, said one civil rights attorney. I felt an equally strong sense of depression and bitterness a year later when the court came out with the all deliberate speed formulation. I had the feeling that we'd won a hollow victory. President Eisenhower distanced himself from the court's actions. It makes no difference whether or not I endorse it, he said. The Constitution is as the Supreme Court interprets it, and I must conform to that and do my very best to see that it is carried out in this country. But later he commented that his appointment of Earl Warren was the biggest damn fool mistake I ever made. He told one of his aides in the White House, "I am convinced that the Supreme Court decision set back progress in the South at least 15 years. In Mississippi, unarguably the most supremacist and segregated state in the country, whites' anger over the ruling fueled violent segregationist backlash. Gangs of whites committed beatings, burnings, and lynchings, murder by mob. The Supreme Court decision also spurred the formation of a new kind of white hate group, composed of urban, middle-class whites determined to fight desegregation. They called themselves the Citizens Council, and civil rights activists dubbed them the White Collar Klan, after the Ku Klux Klan. The Klan's members were generally poor, rural white men. Wearing white robes and hoods that covered their faces, they set crosses ablaze on the lawns of integrationist troublemakers. If that tactic failed to intimidate, they resorted to beatings and murder. The Citizens' Councils, which began to proliferate throughout the South, sought to control blacks more through economic reprisals than by violence. One council leader said that their purpose was to make it difficult, if not impossible, for any Negro who advocates desegregation to find and hold a job, get credit, or renew a mortgage. Several blacks were killed by white men in Mississippi in 1955. Racially motivated murder was not new to the state, but at least 3 of the killings that year were different. 2 of the victims, the Reverend George W. Lee and Lamar Smith, were NAACP organizers trying to register black voters. Until 1940, there were more blacks than whites in Mississippi, and in 1955, blacks still outnumbered whites in many counties. To segregationists, the vote was too powerful a weapon to be in the hands of so many Negras. The usual reasons for murder ranged from stealing food to talking back to a white person. These latest victims were blacks who were standing up for their rights. The victim of the 3rd killing was a teenage boy. His death was different for so many reasons that his murder made the front page of virtually every black newspaper in the nation. Emmett Till was a 14-year-old from the south side of Chicago. In August 1955, Emmett and his cousin Curtis Jones were visiting relatives near Money, Mississippi. They were staying with Curtis's grandfather, Mose Wright. In the town of Money, a black girl had recently been flogged for the dubious offense of crowding white people in a store. Friends and family knew Emmett as a brash, prank-loving 8th grader at McCosh Elementary School. He was doing well enough in school, even with the speech defect he had developed from a bout with non-paralytic polio at age 3. The neighborhood kids on St. Lawrence Avenue said his stutter didn't make Emmett Till shy. He liked to dress smart and talk smart. He was a mama's boy, an only child. Chicago in 1955 was a post-World War II boom town, a magnet for blacks from the South. The Chicago Defender, a weekly black newspaper, ran gossip columns called News from Home, covering counties in every southern state. For its 50th anniversary that year, the paper printed a full-page drawing that showed an exodus of black people, men loaded down with baggage and tools, women with children on their hips, all marching north to Chicago. The city was the shining El Dorado of freedom and good jobs to millions of Southern Negroes, the paper editorialized. Emmett Till's neighborhood was a working-class black area with its share of storefront preachers and apartment buildings crowded with relatives from Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. The music that drifted through the alleyways ranged from old gospel hymns to the modern strains of Fats Domino. Religion, like the numbers and gin, was an important part of black Chicago's life. That summer, blacks and whites sat together at the Jehovah's Witnesses convention at Comiskey Park. Mayor Richard Daley spoke at the opening of the Black National Baptist Convention of America. His appearance there was significant to the transplanted Southern blacks who were not yet accustomed to the idea that in Chicago they could cast a ballot.